Hi, I'm Master J Studios, and you may know me for making those video game countdowns on YouTube that nobody watches. And that's just the truth. But you're in French class now, and as fun as it is to learn about French culture, it's just as important to learn about the French language itself. More specifically, the past tense. Because what better way to talk about your interests than to talk about what you did in the past. And that's why I'm going to present to you, fittingly, a countdown about the top 5 ways you can master the French past tense. The first feature of mastering the past tense is remembering the basic structure. S-A-P. Sap. As in sap dripping from a tree branch, or sap as in disconnecting an enemy engineer's sentry. SAP stands for subject, auxiliary, and the past participle. This is about as difficult to remember as much as Transformers 4 was a good movie. Because it isn't. First, just take the subject, which could be je. Then take the auxiliary for that, which in this case is a. So it would be je. And then the past participle. Now the ending of this past participle verb will depend on whether it's regular, irregular, or an être verb. But that's a whole can of worms, and I'll get right into that. Speaking of which, for most verbs, and I mean pretty much almost any verb, it's probably regular, which means you can conjugate it very well. I said conjugate. If the infinitive ends with ER, then you turn that into an accented E. If it ends with IR, make that an IT. And if it ends with RE, then make that end with U. It's pretty simple to remember, and from those rules, jouer would become jouer, finir would become fini, and entendre would become entendu. Except when the verb is irregular. Irregular verbs are pretty difficult to remember, mainly because they're just scattered dots all over a page. As far as I'm concerned, I don't know if there's an easy way to remember these. I'll just put them into groups so you'll be able to figure them out. Apprendre, comprendre, prendre, and mettre all change their endings to IS. Boire, devoir, pourvoir, recevoir, lire, savoir, and voir all change their endings to U. Découvrir, ouvrir, and offrir all change their endings to ERT. Dire, écrire, and faire all change their endings to T. And the two irregulars are avoir and être. These are just changed to and être. That's a whole lot of pills to digest, but if you can remember a good amount of them, it'll make life a mighty ton easier that way. And I hate to sink your Titanic here, but there's another group of verbs to digest. Now for the être verbs. These can be quite difficult and tricky to use because you have to remember several rules while using them. But if you have the basic idea of them down, you'll be mastering the subject faster than Microsoft's downfall. The following acronym is what you'll be using to remember all 16 être verbs. Dr. Mrs. Vandertramp. One thing to remember while using the être verbs is that they all show a sense of movement. So to die, to come back, to go. So, devenir and revenir are doctor. That's pretty easy to remember because they both rhyme. Monter, rester, sortir are also pretty easy to remember. Now for venir, aller, naître, descendre, entrer, and rentrer. That is Vander. Now for tramp, tomber, retenir, arriver, mourir, and partir. Now that you know what the être verbs are, you'll have to remember how to use them in sentences. To utilize said être verbs in a sentence, you'll need to use the auxiliary suis. Use the SAP structure. Je, and then suis, and then the conjugated verb, so in this case, aller. Make sure the verb is conjugated correctly. Ensure your knowledge of whether the subject is male, female, or plural, and adjust accordingly by adding an extra E or ES. That's a glob load of rules to apply, and you have to know when you do and don't use them. But here's the thing, if you have the basic idea in your head as usual, you can do it. Just believe in yourself. Remember that one day when Albert Einstein, the great Albert Einstein, just went up. And the one surefire method of speaking the past tense in French is to subscribe to Master J Studios. is to sustain an understanding of your auxiliaries. The auxiliary is what comes between the subject and the past participle, and if you didn't know that, pay more attention! I'm going to teach you a very simple song to remember the auxiliaries in the past tense easier. You may already know your auxiliaries, you may have them pat down in your head, smack bang in the middle, and then you could whiz through the end of your exam in the snap of a finger. That's great, Winston, but the thing is, I'm still going to teach you this song anyways because it's damn catchy and you should definitely learn it. Note, the following song is extremely catchy and constant listening to it may accidentally cause you to sing this out loud in an exam. If you experience this one song repeating constantly in your head, then please contact our lawyers at the following email. We don't care at that'stoobad.com.
G-A-I-T-Y-A-S, il a, elle a, nous avons, vous avez, il est, elle, O-N-T. G-A-I-T-Y-A-S, il a, elle a, nous avons, vous avez, il est, elle, O-N-T. Le verbe avoir. G-A-I-T-Y-A-S, il a, elle a, nous avons, vous avez, il est, elle, O-N-T. G-A-I-T-Y-A-S, il a, elle a, nous avons, vous avez, il est, elle, O-N-T.
Now that you've got those lyrics stuck in your head for the next few months, you should be able to master the auxiliaries in no time. I seriously hope you learned something today because I really didn't. I'm Master Jake Studios, and I promote an end to this video. Goodbye!